David Cerrone has finally hit back at Anthony Smith's claims of kicking his family out of their seats at UFC 235. And the fact that this happened over 3 years ago and Anthony is just calling him out now doesn't really make sense. Anyway, credit to David for handling it like a true professional. Stay tuned as we spill all of the details on what Cowboy Cerrone had to say about Anthony's uncanny accusations. First up is Smith trying to stay relevant. Honestly speaking, we're not sure what Smith, aka Lionheart, is trying to get out of all of this. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Why would you bring up something that happened 3 years ago? If Anthony really had an issue with Cerrone, why didn't he just call him out then and there? Like, come on, you guys are fighters. Why not just settle it inside the cage? Also, we're not gonna lie, Cowboy is quite the family man himself, so we can't even imagine him kicking Anthony's family out of their seats. But sure, let's assume for a second that Cerrone and controversial poker player Dan Bilzerian did actually kick his family out of their seats. Wouldn't there be a video or something? Or wouldn't Dana have made a comment? We just find it really odd that Smith claims this happened when there's literally no proof. And you know what made it even more messed up? On the Believe You Me podcast, Lionheart claimed that Cerrone and Dan were both drunk. And after scaring his family out of their seats, they switched on some 18+ videos on their phone, making the entire situation even worse. Anyway, Cerrone quickly shut down all accusations, claiming nothing like that ever happened. They had absolutely no contact with the Smith family, and neither did they watch adult videos at a UFC event. Don't know about you, but we just think Anthony's trying his level best to stay relevant here. And frankly speaking, in case he's having trouble staying relevant, he should look up how Nate Diaz spends his time in the UFC. He might end up learning a thing or two. And one thing we're having trouble understanding is that what's the point of all of this? Dan Bilzerian doesn't care. Cerrone doesn't have a rivalry with Smith. Heck, they aren't even in the same weight division. It really makes no sense. A failed attempt at trying to stay relevant. And that's not how UFC events work. Usually, UFC fighters get to sit in a special section right beside boss Dana White, and it's not like you can just walk up to any seat you want and sit there. Seats are actually assigned beforehand. You show your security ticket and they'll tell you where you're sitting. Not even tell you. In fact, they grab you by the arm and take you to your seat so you don't mess around. And trust us when we tell you this, UFC security isn't a joke. These guys have to manage fighters. So they really don't care if you're Cowboy Cerrone or Conor McGregor. If you cause trouble, you're gonna be in trouble. And if that isn't enough, all the seats have names printed on them. So when Dan and Cerrone entered the arena, they sat on chairs that had their names on them. It's not a free range walk around, you know. Oh, I like this seat. I think I might sit on it. And then afterward, you find out that seat was actually reserved for Francis Ngannou. Boy, that wouldn't be too good, right? And it's not like they terrorized Smith's family by threatening them or something. Even if they did, there were probably a ton of other fighters and security in that section who would have stopped both these guys. The Cowboy also commented on how Anthony claimed he was watching adult videos after throwing his grandma and mom out of their seats, calling the entire story funny and fabricated. Just think about this for a second. Firstly, he says his family shifted a couple seats beside the two drunk gentlemen, and then he talks about how they caught the two alcoholics watching adult videos. It just doesn't make sense. Did they sit behind them or beside them? Please get your story right, Anthony. A crowd of more than 10,000 people, and you're the only person who watched your family get kicked out of their spot whilst fighting the beast John Jones? Yep, totally believable. Up next, what do the fans say? Fans have had a really mixed opinion about the whole incident. While most of them are siding with Cerrone and saying Smith is nothing but a bum and a nobody at the UFC, some of them actually came up with a pretty interesting theory. Just hear this out now. Apparently, one guy thought Cerrone and Dan were so stoned and drunk out of their mind that they don't even remember the whole thing happening. We'll give this comment points for being funny, but it's not true at all. Mainly because it would only be Cerrone and Dan drunk and not the whole arena. Not to mention the boss sitting only a few seats away. He would have noticed, right? Another user commented on how Smith's just a crybaby, always whining about how things are unfair or why he lost a match. But some of them had a pretty rational and sober approach to Smith's comments. They think Lionheart is still a pretty relevant fighter with decent media attention, and that the UFC should actually investigate whether this happened or not, because he has nothing to gain from these claims. Personally speaking, we think this is going to die down pretty soon, but in case it doesn't, investigating that fight wouldn't exactly be a bad idea. Time for some related news. Next up, the biggest challenge of Cannonier's career. After winning 5 of his last 6 fights, Jared Cannonier has finally earned himself a shot at the middleweight title. And while that's an achievement even on its own, he has one huge challenge standing in front of him. The man, the myth, the legend, Israel Adesanya. And even though Cannonier is entering the fight as an underdog, bookmakers have been recording a lot of bets on him coming out as the victor. But unfortunately, we don't only go by the books, we go by facts. Adesanya has ruled the middleweight division for over 3 years now. He's defended his title 4 times against some monsters who rank above Cannonier, so it makes sense why he's the underdog, but honestly speaking, there's just something different about this fight. Despite being massive fans of the last style bender, we actually think this fight may end up being a little difficult for Izzy. That doesn't mean that we don't think he'll win or something. He'll win alright, but it's probably going to take him 3 or 4 rounds to do it. Our bet, Adesanya to win in 3 by a spinning elbow. Hold up, is he backtracking? About a week ago, Max Holloway was talking about how the Notorious would be in a much better position to keep his legacy intact even if he decided not to make a comeback in the cage. And we totally agreed with him, because he's done enough. Being the king of the promotion for a good 3 to 4 years is no joke, but who can say no to a potential money fight? Now, Max has backtracked when TMZ put forward the suggestion of him and Connor throwing it down at some exotic location in Hawaii or even Ireland. There's nothing wrong with thinking about a huge money fight to fill up stadiums, but don't you think Holloway should be focusing on Alex right now? That guy is no joke, and we're not gonna lie, but we're really afraid for Max. If Volka gets going, he's gonna turn him into a bloody mess. So we'd suggest Max stops backtracking and imagining money fights and focus on what lies ahead. Finally, the main event. Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards faced each other after their first match for the welterweight title, and while you could see the respect these guys had for each other, Leon clearly seemed like the one with something to prove. He was filmed taking deep breaths after an intense stare down against the current champion. We're guessing he probably got nervous and lost his composure, or he was trying to hold his laughter after seeing what Kamaru decided to wear to a stare down. How does his mother even let him go out in clothes like that? But anyway, if there's anyone other than Khamzat who can beat Kamaru, it has to be Leon. He knows what to do and what not to do. That first loss must have given him a lot of experience, and we still think Kamaru will win, but all it takes is just one moment to turn things around. And if Edwards is able to exploit his weaknesses, we might be hearing the broadcaster announce the new welterweight champion of the UFC. That's it from our side, folks. So, what do you think? Could Cerrone ever do something like kick a fighter's family out of their seats? Or do you think Smith is just trying to stay relevant at this point? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Remember, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos in the future. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.